Hello everyone, CMeeCraft here, and welcome back to A Light in the Dark. Things are heating up once again here at A Light in the Dark. We're going on to day 3, gap between us, and we'll see if our changes in actions will end up having much of an effect here. Day 3, morning. So cold. I opened my eyes in a daze. From outside the window, the sunlight splattered across the floor, but even that wasn't enough to remove the gloominess from the room. I tried to stretch my body. The sunlight failed to dissipate the cold, and the freezing air made me shudder. Day 3. I was getting used to the room's moldy smell, but the night was still too cold to sleep properly. My stomach burned from starvation. Not only did I feel worse physically, but mentally as well. After letting me prove my identity through the call, she took the phone outside to prevent me from listening to their conversation. About 10 minutes later, she returned and lit a cigarette. The smoke permeated the air. There was no way for me to know what they had discussed, and all my questions got no response. Father's voice through the phone sounded plain as always. He was more skeptical than nervous. Even after a few questions, he still didn't believe I was kidnapped. I tried to tell him my status, but the phone got taken away before he could make any sense of it. Maybe he couldn't even recognize his own son. I laughed ironically, despite my chest being burdened by unease. So what now? Facing the gray ceiling, I tried to figure something out. We'll continue with communication. This might be foolish, but it's what we're doing. I mustn't give up. There are too many hanging threads for communication to not be something that can result in something good, right? Rather than taking the risk to escape, I should try to convince them. After hanging out with them during the past few days, I had learned that they weren't that difficult to communicate with. I just hoped it wasn't just an illusion. I looked around the room and found the little girl sitting next to the wall, surrounded by books from God knows where. The big sis was gone. Based on the door sounds I heard, she probably left around early morning. What time is it? I asked her. She poked her head out from behind the book. This question should be fine for a dancer, right? 7. So early. I never expected time to pass this slowly, especially when I used to be able to sleep until noon and just skip breakfast. I was so bored that I even felt bewildered by the situation. They say time connects with emotion. Time under happiness flies, while time under pain lasts forever. There was this sci-fi novel that I read before. I couldn't recall most of the details, but one specific part left quite an impression. It was a nation with a special punishment. They paralyzed criminals' bodies, but kept their consciousness intact when the criminals were left in the cell. All they could do was think. Think through eternity, without connection with the outside world. With life support, they could still breathe, but only breathe. I finally understood what that intriguing concept would feel like after experiencing it myself. When you couldn't move your limbs, pain and hunger stood out like a sore thumb. All my attempts to break free failed, and the knot was still tight as ever. Who knew rope could be this durable? There is counterfeit butter and pudding in the market, yet the rope was still this sturdy. The government really should award this sort of top-notch manufacturing. My train of thought only led to another headache, along with my sore throat. Could it be that I caught a cold? Should I reserve my energy or try to talk to her? Let's talk. I hesitated a little, but decided to talk to her. Aren't you afraid? Of what? Of the cops coming for you. Facing my question, she stared at me in silence. It took her a while to respond. Would they? She asked me quietly. What do you think? Kidnapping someone plus asking for ransom? If that wouldn't get the police's attention, then so be it. We don't want to do this either. We've tried our best. They have done worse things to big sis. Like what? She turned her head away and didn't answer. The conversation seemed to depress her. It took quite a while before I heard her behind the books. I am scared. But if Big Sis needs my help, I'll help. If you want to help her, you should let me go. I lost my chance to say this upon seeing her expression, pressing her lips to suppress her fear. Whatever, I shouldn't push too hard on the subject. I convinced myself with an excuse, not fully certain why I decided to stop there. After that, she didn't speak and only indulged herself in the book silently. Don't remember getting that last time. Anything to eat? I tried to chat with her on different subjects, hoping to figure out some intel. She wrestled around and took out half a steamed bun, then placed it next to me quietly. Crackers first and now steamed buns. They were all cheap foods with long shelf life, yet lacked an appetizing value. The outside was dry like an air-dried tangerine skin. It was quite hard to chew, and I could barely taste anything in my mouth. I swallowed it down with water and started to miss the American brunch from a few days ago. The craving made me sigh in despair. Is it that bad? Yeah, it would be much better if there was a fried egg with pepper. She stared at me surprised and only opened her mouth a little while later. You know how to cook? Sort of, just simple stuff. I always had some simple ingredients ready since I lived alone. If I was lazy, I just cooked some instant noodles plus a fried egg and called it a meal. Most of the time I just put everything from the fridge into the crock pot. I didn't really care as long as they were cooked and filling. What, is it strange? Seeing her hesitation there, I asked. I thought you'd have someone cooking for you and bringing meals to your room every day. Like a butler? You've watched way too many soap operas. I didn't stay in a hotel with that kind of service or anything. My breakfast is usually just a sandwich, bread, or onigiri from the breakfast shop, like regular folks. Oh. Realizing how mundane my breakfast was, she responded disappointedly. Did she think of me as some playboy millionaire from a movie who spent all day long in bars to hook up with chicks? How about tea parties? Right before I could explain myself, she threw me another ridiculous question. Tea parties. I repeated the words and confirmed that I didn't hear wrong upon seeing her nodding. Okay, so if my ears still functioned and I didn't misunderstand her, she was referring to a traditional British afternoon tea. Like those things with 3 layers from bottom to top. You got sandwiches, scones, and cakes. You taste them in that order too. Taste aside, that just sounds like a giant pain in the ass. Never tried it. I didn't even hear of it that often. In a magazine they said rich people invited friends over with lots of food and tea. Right. I know what a tea party means. So no tea parties for you? Nope. Ignoring her curious look, I replied without hesitation. Why? Making tea and buying cake is a ton of work, and you have to clean up the mess after inviting people over. Too much trouble. I didn't even talk to my family much, so the whole idea of us having a happy afternoon tea time was just unimaginable.
No one prepares it for you?
No one hired someone just to make tea. For this sort of luxury stuff, wouldn't it be more convenient to have it in some cafe? She quietly lowered her head as though pondering my words. Do you by chance think my house is some fancy mansion with many servants and all I need to do is ring a bell? Oh dear. I was just kidding, but based on her reaction, I was right. I live by myself in a 300 square foot condo. I do my own laundry and cleaning, plus chasing the garbage truck to throw away the trash from time to time.
But aren't you rich?
My dad is, not me. Important difference there. It might make no difference for them, but I corrected her nonetheless. Also, being rich and being wasteful are two different things. One should do things by oneself if possible.
Why?
Why what? The quiet girl started to talk and asked me question after question with much curiosity. Unlike her big sis, there was no hatred or mockery in her eyes, just pure curiosity.
If I had money, I would live in a big house and hire many people to cook and clean.
Is that so? For me, I just needed a place big enough to live. I didn't even have that many friends, so what was the point of all these fancy desires? Besides, the bigger the house, the harder to clean. Hiring someone to do it would be an extra expense. There's no point in troubling myself like that. If they did everything for you, then what would you do? She stumbled slightly upon my question. Clearly it had never crossed her mind before.
Just rest?
Rest forever? If you have everything done for you, you will become nothing but a useless waste of space. She tried to explain, but lowered her head like a wrecking ball.
I don't know.
Suddenly, I understood the source of all these deep-rooted enmities. False imagination. For them, I enjoyed a comfortable life with no effort, while they got trapped in poverty despite their best efforts. Envy and depression accumulated and eventually turned into anger and hatred. False imagination came from all the rumors and media portrayal, picturing the rich as people crashing into others while drunk or high after having crazy parties. At the end of the day, the media just wanted provocative news. A fancy car killing someone was always more remarkable than a cheap-ass one causing it. Integrity has nothing to do with wealth. There's no lack of rich people leading a rather simple life. You just never see them in the news. They do whatever they can to produce things people want to see. Public media code of integrity? That doesn't mean jack shit in the audience-driven era. Without the truth, neither the journalists nor the audience care. We see what we want to see. Despite knowing this full well, we still choose not to resist it. Alright, some actions. Okay. Anything new to observe? So we still got the books. I'm not sure if observing them again would yield any benefits. Don't think have I ever tried observing something twice? I could observe this blanket here specifically. Might do that. But first, I will look at the chatting options. Okay, so we still have the things from last time. Where'd your big sis go? You really believe in her? What do you picture me as? So I'm thinking so cold and what do you picture me as well as observing the blanket here. Because we've done the couch, but I don't think we've observed the blanket before. It's so cold. Without my coat, all I have is this thermal shirt, which is far from sufficient in this weather. I have to keep myself warm to even rest. I can't conserve my energy without sleep. Can you bring a coat? I'm a little cold. She turned her gaze to the coat, but only shook her head, unmoved.
No.
I just want to keep warm. It would be troublesome for you if I got sick, right? She hesitated, but handed me the blanket on the bed after seeing I wasn't lying.
Here you go.
Thank you.
So, please don't run away, okay?
Hearing the almost pleading tone for a split second, I didn't know how to respond. It wasn't like I had a choice. What was she thinking about? Does the blanket have sentimental value, perhaps? And she would be crushed if I ran away with the blanket. Regardless, I could finally rest nicely. Oh, that even got some stamina. Nice. At least I could rest nicely now. Good. Okay. Now chatting. Well, now that we have the blanket, so cold doesn't seem to really be necessary. I think what you picture me as is pretty important. So we'll go with this one. What do you picture me as? I have no idea how much they misunderstood. I couldn't help but ask. Her answer was surprisingly simple.
A rich person?
Remembering all the past conversations, I sighed helplessly. I think you must have quite a misunderstanding about rich people. Rich people aren't all bad people. She looked at me silently, not really believing me. Judge for yourself. Maybe I should be going for these options that are kind of against the big sis, but I really don't know. I just feel like that's not going to resonate with her. Because trusting her big sis is such a big part of her thought process or identity. I don't think we can easily shift that. I don't know what news you've seen or what your big sis has told you that makes you think all rich people are bad. But what have I actually done? Do you think everything she said is true? Try to judge for yourself with your own eyes. I tried to convince her subtly. If she could understand, then perhaps I could get out of here without much risk.
I don't know.
She refused my glance and didn't want to hear more from me. I sighed lightly. If I couldn't change her mind right now, then I had to wait for another chance. So what now? What chatting options do we have available? I doubt she knows about this. So cold again seems irrelevant now that we have a blanket. Who are you? Is a decent one. I kinda like you really believe in her. You really believe in her?
Yes, Pix is not a bad person.
She nodded without hesitation, not realizing she was the one locking me up here. If that didn't count as a bad person, then the standard was just way too loose.
She wouldn't really harm you. She'll let you go when she gets the money.
Oh, really? Not the first time I heard it from her, but I still didn't know where that confidence came from.
Yes, she promised me.
Cool, or do you just believe anything she says? Cool? Alright, if we're not questioning her faith in the big sis, then I think either you go all the way on that, you go all in on that, or you don't really go for it. I'm not sure kind of going halfway is the best idea in that case. Cool.
So please, just wait a little longer.
What if she can't get the money? Not wanting to think about the possibility, her face darkened. Never mind. Forget about it. In the end, I made no progress. She didn't know what was going on, nor was she willing to contact her big sis for me. And I felt horrible. My fluctuating body temperature confirmed my theory that, and the muscle soreness indicated a fever. Shit. Getting sick now of all times, I couldn't even stay awake, let alone escape. The girl was still reading a book next to the wall, having no clue about the ideas floating in my mind. She was by herself with the knife, only a few steps away. My hands were still tied up, but I could still move them a little. I could call her over, knock her out, and cut the ropes loose. A sense of unease surfaced, along with all sorts of possibilities in my mind. What if she dodged it? What if the door was blocked? Could there be someone else? I didn't see much of a chance to succeed, nor did I have any idea where to start. I also might end up hurting her accidentally. She didn't seem to know what she was doing, nor had she actually threatened me. I should avoid violence against her unless I had no choice. I made up my mind and started to think of other options.
Big sis?
What? Hearing the girl's voice, I came back to my senses and realized she was staring at me. All sorts of ridiculous ideas intertwined in my brain. I shouldn't make any rushed decisions with this messy mind.
Do you hate Big Sis?
Who would like their kidnapper? Sounds like I had Stockholm Syndrome. I wanted to reply like that, but I kept it down. It didn't matter what I thought. I had to come up with a response that would make her drop her guard based on what she wanted to hear. Saying that I like her might be too much, so I should reply with, I don't like her, I don't know. I don't like her. I think stating firmly, affirmatively, that I don't like her, potentially, in the little girl's mind, makes her have more to prove to me. Because she's repeatedly said now that Big Sis is not a bad person. If I say I don't like her, that potentially increases her resolve further of, oh, I really need to show him that she's not a bad person, really. Whereas I don't know is just kind of non-committal, and I don't think really accomplishes much of anything. I don't like her.
I see.
It'd be strange if I did. I am tied up here because of you guys.
Right. There's no way.
A regretful smile appeared on her face, and she fell into silence. I might like her a little more if you let me go.
That's impossible.
Her voice was light, but with unshakable determination. Okay. Not confident about that one. Okay. What chatting options do we have? Still the same ones as before? Yes, still the same ones as before. I'm going to take another look at observing. See, is there anything else that I want to observe? I don't think so. So I say we just knock out the chatting options. I think they're all probably potentially useful. Just chat your ear off. We'll start off with who are you? Who are you? She silently looked at me, showing no desire to talk. Are you a student?
I don't go to school.
She shook her head, still not really interested in talking to me. I looked at her. She must be underage with such thin arms and a slender body. Do your parents know about this? Do they allow you to do such a thing? She pressed her lips and shook her head, feeling the mood was too heavy. I decided to talk to her a little later. Okay. Let's chat. We'll point out the cold, I guess. It's kind of relevant at this point, but hey. so cold.
Hmm?
She made a sound to indicate she heard me. I waited a while before continuing to talk. A bit weird stating this after I already have the blanket, but still. If only it was a little warmer. With my movements restrained, I had no way to get information if they didn't talk to me. To get information from her, I needed to find a way to make her talk. After all, telling her directly I want to talk most likely wouldn't work. I want some coffee. If possible, I would like to have some coffee.
Oh,
Don't you also want something hot to drink?
well, coffee is too bitter.
She said indifferently. Just when I was about to give up, she answered softly.
But cocoa's fine.
What's this? She liked hot cocoa. Not quite sure how that's relevant, but I'll take it. One more chatting. I mean, theoretically we could rest, but we already have... Stamina's already pretty decent. We're not gonna die from anything anytime soon in that department. Where did your big sis go? Worth the shot. Where did your big sis go?
I don't know.
I tried to start a conversation and still made no progress. Don't you care at all?
Big sis told me to guard you and that she would be back soon.
The girl calmly lowered her head as though living in her own world, without one bit of anxiety or guilt as a criminal. Aren't you afraid?
Afraid of what?
Of being found out by the cops. What if the cops find you? Saying I don't know won't cut it. She pressed her lips and said nothing. There was some hesitation in her expression when she stared at me. With how advanced technology's become, there are surveillance cameras everywhere. It's only a matter of time before they find out. No matter how good your big sis is, she won't be able to protect you by that point. She tried to open her mouth, but paused a little, and then swallowed the words. Give it some thought. It seemed like she did care, but just somehow suppressed her anxiety. Compared to her big sis's stubbornness, she might let me go if I pressured her more. Okay. Day 3, noon. My cloudy consciousness gradually cleared. It looked like I fell asleep without noticing. The sky outside the window was dyed crimson. The freezing wind brushing against my cheek made me tremble. I didn't know how long I had slept, but my body showed no signs of recovering. The rope cut into my flesh like ant bites. My struggling out of annoyance only led to torn skin. What time is it?
5.
The girl was at the same spot, quiet like a delicate porcelain doll.
Why do you keep asking me the time?
Because that's all you will tell me, right? Knowing the time wouldn't change anything, but the sense of cluelessness was just unbearable. Shit, my head hurts. She was not a good conversation partner, but I tried anyway to keep myself awake. If you buy me a coffee, I can give you all the money I have. My heavy head made me say the most random of things like a drunk man.
You like coffee?
She raised her head and stared at me with curiosity. That big sis would have shut me up, but she at least chatted with me here and there. Nothing is more pleasant than drinking coffee in this weather. Well, except a hot bath.
I don't... too bitter.
You don't have to enjoy it. Different coffee beans have different tastes. How you prepare it is also a factor. Filter drip isn't real coffee at all. Only pour-over coffee can bring out the fragrance. There is something wrong with those latte lovers. The only proper coffee is black coffee. You may as well just drink milk. Hearing all my critiques, she made a comment.
You really like to talk.
Do you have a better alternative? Facing my question, she started to contemplate seriously.
Just sleep?
She spoke timidly, as though fearing that I would scold her. Great idea. Please let me know how to just sleep with my hands tied and my body hungry and cold. I started coughing before I could respond. I didn't even have the strength to joke around. If this kept up, I'd cough myself to death before they killed me. Living like this was worse than death. I recalled this line from a book and found it super fitting. The girl stared at me for a while, then came over carefully with the knife. Don't you worry. I can't resist you even if you were empty-handed. Ignoring my mockery, she partly squatted before me. I then felt her slightly cold touch.
You have a fever?
Just let me rest. Just let me rest. Not wanting to waste more energy, I sighed tiredly and closed my eyes. I heard the sound of her stepping back and felt her glance at me with worry. Because, yeah, the other one ended up being, like, super mean and sarcastic last time, so, yeah. Well, I got some stamina back. Day 3, night. There was the sound of the bike's motor outside of the window. The girl raised her head sharply and ran out to welcome her big sis. I had no idea where she'd been. The girl's hair was still messy, and she held plastic bags from a convenience store in her hands.
I'm back. Is everything alright? Big sis?
The little girl worriedly explained the status of my body. The big sis frowned upon hearing it.
Okay, I will take care of it. You should eat something now.
After calmly patting her little sister's head and asking her to take the plastic bags, the girl coldly looked down on me.
So, what's wrong with you now?
Who knows? Food poisoning, maybe? Not wanting to show my weakness before I gathered my strength to reply.
If you can still joke around, it probably isn't too bad.
The smell of cigarettes from her made me dizzy. She covered my forehead with the back of her hand, then checked my body temperature in a much rougher way than the little girl.
What a fragile body you have here, rich boy. Can't take some wind?
Yes, don't you know, I'm delicate. Please take good care of me. I spoke without thinking. I was too tired to care if that would trigger. Maybe shouldn't have said that one. Maybe should have not have said that.
Why you?
Seemingly more frustrated than angry, she pressed her lips and started to check the ropes on me. Rope is pointless now, I get.
Just shut up if you can't even say the full sentence.
Noticing I couldn't even breathe from the coughing, she left those words, but also loosened her grip. You should care more about me spreading disease than escaping.
I'm not a greenhouse flower like you. This sort of cold is nothing. I still have to work even with a fever. If I take a day off, I might just lose my job the next day. You have no idea, right, rich boy?
I had no idea, nor did I give an F. I didn't pick the job for you, so what was the point of complaining about that to me? It was hard to keep your emotions under control when you felt horrible. I decided to change the subject to avoid an argument. Did my dad pay?
Why would I keep you here if he did? Do you think I like tying you up?
They did make contact yesterday, so they should have been discussing the details of the ransom. Ignoring her provocation, I forced myself to focus on the intel at hand. Common ways were money transfer or cash in the bag. However, money transfers could be traced and physical cash was difficult to arrange. I heard some kidnappings used Bitcoin or other virtual currency instead, more secure and flexible than cash. Even a high score with a bat could kidnap someone. The question was how to get out of the situation.
Save your breath and just rest. Have no desire to call a doctor if you pass out.
Thanks for the heads up. She had a point. I shouldn't find more things to torture myself with outside of just my body. I tried to lean back and let the wall take some of the weight. This was a more comfortable pose than what I had in the past few days. But it only made me feel just a tiny little bit better, far from having a good rest.
Sis, can I have all these?
The girl took out all kinds of food from the bag. Bread, cookies, and steaming hot udon? I don't know. The smell only made my headache worse.
I already had dinner, so you just dig in.
She replied softly, treating her in a totally different manner. Hey, it's one thing to not share your food, but of all the foods you could pick... The little girl stopped moving her chopsticks and looked at her sister with a pleading expression as though asking her what to do.
Isn't it only fair? We were eating instant ramen when you were having a feast. There's no way these sorts of cheap foods are to your taste.
What the hell? Hearing her nonsensical accusation, I was too exhausted to retort.
What? Say something.
I've had enough. The fierce headache took away the last of my patience. A provoking expression finally made me lose control of my emotions. Right. I am the rich boy who lives in a giant mansion, rinses my mouth with expensive wine, and has dozens of maids and butlers. A snap of my fingers and someone will bring me whatever I want. I smash the plate to the ground after 2 bites, then whine about what kind of crap this is. Someone drives me to school every day. I have LV bags and Rolex watches. All my accessories from top to bottom cost millions of Taiwan dollars, and your poor ass can never even afford one of them. How's that? Is that what you had in mind? There was no thought behind those words, just my accumulated rage and frustration coming out like a flood. I was tired of this conversation. There was no middle ground. They forced their imaginative perception upon me and totally ignored what they had seen. You don't know shit about me. Nor do you give an F. From the very beginning, you have decided to hate me just because I live a better life than you. All rich people should die. All of them are trash that can't help themselves from running over people with their fancy cars, right? So cut the bullshit if you don't know anything. The blood all rushed to my head. I was close to passing out from the headache, but yelled at the top of my lungs anyway. The room echoed with my sound. The little girl curled up next to the wall with a scared expression as though I wasn't tied up.
Are you effing kidding me?
Her eyes flashed with raging fire, and she yelled back at me with equal force. Unlike the weakness the girl showed, the big sis stood up forcefully.
Have you ever felt hungry? Ever worried where to sleep at night? Ever had someone burst open your door to collect debt? I don't know shit about you. Then what the F do you know about me, huh? Do you know what we were dealing with when you were going to school? Or when you were sleeping? That's why I hate your lot. By what right can you live like that? By what right can you speak like that? You don't care about us, because it's none of your business.
Yes, it isn't. I didn't care what happened to me if I just wanted to vent all my frustration from my chest. So, should I feel guilty for Siberian refugees? Feel responsible for ISIS? Give me a break. Why should I feel responsible for your life? Why should I kneel before you and apologize? I have nothing to do with your poverty.
And it is my fault?
Her raised fist smashed against the wall. The girl's roar was mixed with sobbing. Her voice echoed through the room. Everything seemed to stop at that moment. Her face was twisted with rage, with lips turned blood red from biting. I could also see her hands trembling.
You think I enjoy this? You think I don't want to live better? I even wish I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Why can some people have a comfortable life without doing anything? Why does my life have to be living hell? Tell me!
Facing the girl's emotional accusations, I couldn't respond immediately. It was neither of our faults. It wasn't even about any individual, but something that was decided before our birth. No reason, no explanation. The world is just not fair. Remember what she said before, I repeated it. Hearing the girl burst into laughter. It sounded relaxed yet mocking, a mysterious, crazy laughter.
Yes, the world isn't fair. So none of us should complain about what happens in this goddamn world, right?
Not able to find words, I averted my gaze. Exhaustion took me over. Once I calmed down, I could barely talk when I leaned against the wall, weakly. Chill. Someone might call the cops if you yell this loud. She looked at me over her shoulder, then clicked her tongue unhappily.
Shut up. I don't want to beat up a dying person.
How nice of you. I said half-jokingly, feeling much more relaxed after releasing all my pent-up thoughts. I couldn't focus my eyes anymore. During my fluctuating body temperature, I powerlessly closed my eyes. There's only everlasting loneliness in the darkness. Tired. Cold. How much longer before this was over? Would I be free if I just gave up? Could I just let it all go and sleep forever? It is hot. Amidst the cloudiness, a icy cold hand covered my forehead. I had no strength to open my eyes and could only identify the speakers from their voices.
What a pussy. Acting like a dying man just because of cold.
Easy for you to say. I deserve some credit for remaining sane after being kidnapped and treated like this.
Oh, big sis. Will he die?
Hearing the mumbling from the little girl, I realized how my senses became sharper after I closed my eyes. Even the air temperature felt extra vivid. There was another hand on my forehead, along with the scent of a cigarette.
It takes more than that to kill someone.
Despite her words, there was doubt in her voice. It took a while before I heard her voice again.
Look after him for me. I'll be right back.
I suddenly felt a weight on my body. A soft cotton blanket held in my body heat, making it feel much warmer. I could sense the girl next to me with her gaze, and maybe even her breathing. My eyes were closed, but I felt her gaze. No. It was probably just my imagination. I couldn't connect to the broken thoughts in my mind. I passed out again.
Ah, you're back. Mommy needs to head out and take care of something, so have dinner without me. You can eat whatever you like.
Lies.
If Daddy calls, just tell him I'm in class, okay?
Liar.
Be a good boy, okay?
The laughter of an unknown man, hurried footsteps, and the sound of an engine starting. After removing my shoes, I found myself in an empty living room. I lay down on the sofa. My mind was blank while I stared at the hanging chandelier. I realized now that this house was too big. So huge that it made me feel lonely. Of the crime, there was no one in the dark alleyway. The cold moonlight shined upon the fenced construction site. The criminals no exception. One couldn't bear the self-doubt, even when ignoring others' gazes. Was there any evidence left behind? Had the cops started taking action? The girl took a deep breath while lighting up a cigarette. The heavy scent permeated her nose, but wasn't enough to erase the unease. She took out a newly bought cold medicine from her pocket. She wasn't sure why she did that. She didn't care about that boy's survival. She didn't even intend to let him leave here alive. It was only now that she realized murdering someone was not easy. He was no longer just a thing. Once you talked to and touched him, he was a living person. It was time to head back. She decided not to think further. She also hadn't slept properly for days now, just relying on nicotine and alcohol. But she had to keep going. For the ideal life she and her only family deserved. And that's day 4. Or that was day 3, day 4 is next. So far, things still flowing along the same basic path. I hope we can... I hope we're not just retreading the same mistakes as the last time. Honestly, if we are, I might just re-record the series again, because no one wants to watch basically the same events happen again. But there have been some key changes, and I hope they start to come into play soon, because I'm starting to get worried that our fate might be sealed as just the same thing as last run, so hopefully that's not the case. But I guess we'll press on and see if that is indeed the case in the next episode, where we'll do day 4 Mist. But until then, guys, I've been CMeeCraft, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Goodbye.